Hello, Holy Apostles. Father Jim Barron here. Thanks for joining me for this Fireside Chat. This Fireside Chat is kind of making up for the town hall meeting that I had to cancel a couple weeks ago. And I'll explain why a little bit later in the video, but we weren't in a really good position to be able to present the most up-to-date and accurate information to the parish for that town hall. And so I figured instead of coming with things that were still in flux, better to just cancel it and then follow up with an update. And that's what this is. But this town hall meeting was supposed to be about, and today's video will be about, the renovation project status at Holy Apostles. To catch up any parishioners that have joined us within the last year or two, we've been very busy. It seems like the parish has been under perpetual construction for a few years, trying to chip away at a whole long list of needs and projects that we identified about 5 years ago now. We had an assessment done of the building to see some of these problematic areas, just how much of a problem they would be, and then looking at the other areas that those would impact, and again, developing a list of needs, a list of wants, and kind of the fact that, you know, you've got a 30-year-old building that's inevitably going to need some updates. It's more than 30 years old, by the way. So what we've accomplished up till now with our renovation projects is we've been able to relocate what's called a grease trap, a gross part of a commercial kitchen, to the outside of the building. And with that, it came with a kitchen renovation because we had to tear up the floors and the cabinets. And so that was a very big need. Our old grease trap was actually leaking, and the EPA would get on us and we'd have fines. And so that was just something that we needed to do right away. We also completed our heating and cooling renovation project. That was a big project, and it took a lot of time. In God's providence, we were able to accomplish most of it during the shutdowns during the COVID time. But we have completed that, and when the air conditioning comes on in these hot summer Sundays, that's thanks to the hard work and the generosity of parishioners and the crew that made that project complete. We've also completed our plaza, which is that front entry in the main entrance of the church with the radiant heat concrete. So when somebody hasn't flipped off a particular switch, it actually works to melt the snow, so we don't have ice buildup. It's a lot cleaner and safer entrance through the main entry of the church. We also have the beautiful landscaping that was donated by one of our seminarians' families. We're going to have that statue of the Blessed Mother completely custom for our parish, the Blessed Mother and the Christ Child, Mary, Queen of Apostles, which should be in at the end of the summer into the early fall. That's all in process. We've got our new stations. Well, they're new to us. They're beautiful antiques that we were able to recover and have refurbished. So these are things that were on our list to accomplish that we've been able to accomplish, and they're all paid off. We have no debt. This is about a $3.3 million worth of projects that you have completed, and we have no loan, no mortgage. And so that's something worth celebrating. We've already been able to start saving thanks to your generosity towards the remaining renovation projects, and that's what I want to talk about next. We have a series of ongoing needs, and they make themselves more and more painfully evident every day. Every time you sit down in that pew and it creaks and groans, it's not because you put on holiday weight, it's just because the pew is so old and needs to be replaced. Up on the altar area, by the altar or the ambo, there's still areas that sag. Our carpet is ratty and tattered and stained in many places. And just overall, the church needs a bit of an update, a little bit of a facelift with a couple different areas. We have lighting issues that you've probably noticed as well, and that's not just because the light bulbs have burnt out. Some of them need a correction in faulty wiring. The narthex area has been identified by many parishioners as just being a little bit too loud, and it's great to have so many families, a lot of energetic young kiddos hang out there after masses on Sunday, but that echoes back into the church. People are trying to pray, it gets loud, and so we want to address that as well. And of course, also parts of our parking lot look like a moonscape. That's going to need to be resurfaced before too long and before it gets so much worse. So these are examples of ongoing needs or issues that we have yet to address and that we want to address with the next attack for our renovation project. So the building committee, and Holy Apostles has a great building committee. A shout out to those members. Thank you for your great contributions. I have met with the architects that we've engaged for this next round of renovation projects. And we've made some modifications to the interior of the church renovation idea that is going to be available on the website as well as featured on this video. You can check out some of those updated modifications to the design ideas for the inside of the church. But we've been in conversation with the architects and also with a general contractor to see what these renovations that we've been talking about and the remainder of our project list will actually cost. And boy, oh boy, it's staggering. Inflation has not been kind to the construction industry. If you've tried to do any renovation work at home or to try to buy a new house or had to do any projects at work that involve construction, you know what I'm talking about. It's gotten very expensive. And looking at altogether the new cost of the updated cost for the remaining projects, we were getting upwards of over 7 million. And that's just not possible. I don't want to say it's not possible. Anything's possible for God, and millionaire parishioners out there, you know who you are. But this is something that I thought was a little bit too much, especially to leave for Father Tom to take on right away. And so the building committee and I, with the architects and the contractors, have been talking about how we can perhaps revision to reduce the scope of some of these projects and take them into more bite-sized chunks. This also has to do with not just the overall price tag. Maybe if we are able to put off some projects, costs will come down, but also what we would be able to reasonably service in the event that we would need to take out a loan. And that's what I want to talk a little bit about for this next segment. With the building committee, parish council, finance council, we had talked about the real feasibility of a parish being able to accomplish about a $4 million, maybe $4.5 million renovation cost. And I still think that's reasonable. So speaking to the architects, we said, okay, what can we do? What do we need to put off and perhaps delay so that we can reduce our most immediate and necessary projects to this $4.5 million cost as the cap? And that's how we've approached the conversation over the last couple weeks. And this is really going to consider or really going to imply that we're likely going to need to phase out some of the other projects and really try to accomplish the bones of the most important projects next and first. And when I say bones, I mean the things that are going to be necessary to do kind of all at the same time and that are integral to the overall design and concept of the new project design. Things like renovating the sanctuary area with new carpet, new pews, the lighting, things like that. You can't really do one at a time. If you're going to fix the lighting, you really have to take out all the pews. And if you're going to have the pews out, that's the time to replace the carpet. If you're going to put down new carpet, you wouldn't put the old broken pews back over it. And if you're going to replace the carpet and the pews and the sanctuary floor needs to be renovated, that's the time to do that project. And if you're going to do that, is it time to also do some of the other artistic things? And ultimately, we're trying to limit what's called scope creep. The scope of the projects can start to roll into other areas, and we really want to look at the things that can be done first. That may imply postponing certain artistic finishes, maybe certain mosaic pieces or painting features or other sculptural or framework for the stations. We're in conversation about that, but I just want to update the parishes. That's sort of where the conversation is. And as I say, most important projects, we've done the things that most impact our comfort in the parish with the heating and cooling, with projects that we would start to incur fees and penalties and fines if we didn't address. I'm speaking about these next areas of importance being the church itself, because that really should be our next primary focus, is making sure that we have a functioning, a beautiful, and inspiring worship space. Sometimes we become so pragmatic that we think, well, if it doesn't absolutely need to happen like a new set of pews, then we shouldn't pay attention to it at all. But an important part of our faith is a lovely worship space, a space that helps us to feel that we are in contact with the divine, a sacramental representation, a visible sign of the invisible reality that we celebrate. And so we're really looking at the church renovation as the next most important necessary step, because it is. It's what we are gifted by the Lord to be able to then encounter Him in Mass. And it's important because it is for the Lord, and it's for the church, for the parish, for future generations. So that's the next area of focus. This may, as I said, involve doing certain structural and essential necessary things and delaying various artistic additions, but we're trying to set the place for those additions to be able to put in place when the time comes, when we can afford them, when somebody gifts them to the parish. But that's how we're approaching this next phase. And it will also involve delaying other areas that will need attention, like the parish hall, like the bathrooms, like some of the parish offices. So we're trying to contain within that $4.5 million price tag and to do as much as we can, but really confronting the reality that we're going to have to delay some things to the future. This conversation is something we're having with the building committee. Father Tom will be brought into this in one of our upcoming meetings. I've kept him up to speed on where we are with this whole conversation, and so he knows that there's a renovation project, and no priest likes to leave these kinds of things for his successor, but sometimes it happens. But I'm resting very well assured that our great building committee will help Father Tom to navigate the circumstance that he's inheriting. We have been, as I said, saving for this project. The diocese typically requires for especially building projects that half of the total cost the parish has in hand. So we're trying to save as much up to half of this cost as possible, but I do also believe that it's possible to make the case that because we've looked at all of these projects together and have paid off more than $3.2 million worth, if you take the sum total of what we've accomplished up till now, we've well paid off more than half of it, especially with what we will have had in savings by that point. And so I think that the diocese will be able to support and stand behind this project, but that's a conversation that will have to happen, especially as these costs get more fixed in and a calendar is set. But speaking of calendar, this is most likely going to happen in the summer of 23 at the soonest. It may not even happen then. So just to be aware that we're not talking about beginning this renovation project tomorrow, this month, even this year. But please stay tuned to Father Tom and the building committee's updates for the calendar of these renovation projects, because they will impact the day-to-day life of the church, especially meaning that we won't be able to have Mass in the sanctuary because that's going to be the place where the renovations happen. So all of these kind of details will certainly come out, but this is where we are up till now. And this is an important opportunity for me to say thank you once again for your generosity to these projects, to our capital campaign that we had a couple years ago, the Christ's Light for Generations capital campaign. I thank you for those who are continuing to make good on their pledges. I would like to invite those who have not participated in that capital campaign, those who are joining us recently in the parish, to please consider financially supporting this renovation work. This is one of those over and above our regular offertory ways that a pastor will ask his people to be generous and to support the needs of the parish. As I talk about, or the analogy with our home life, we have to pay our taxes in an ongoing way. There are certain expenses, bills that will always be there. Every so often, we have a refrigerator that breaks down that we have to replace. We have to put new carpet into our living room. And I know some families have delayed doing just that so that they can help support their parish family. And that's incredibly generous and wonderfully admirable. Thank you for that beautiful act of devotion to our common home, our parish home. Folks who have not perhaps had an opportunity to give, I, again, would like to encourage you to prayerfully consider doing so. We've received very generous gifts from families in the past, upwards of $1 million. We've had families give gifts in the hundreds of thousands, some in the tens of thousands, some in the hundreds. And some have just been very faithful with giving as they're able to along the way. But all of those gifts need to be recognized and honored. Thank you for that. And encouraged for those who may be in a position to give again, those who have not yet given to this campaign, to please, again, consider doing so. I really believe the Holy Apostles can do this in all of the projects, but I think it might be perhaps overwhelming and even perhaps discouraging to try to do all of these projects at the same time in this current climate. Focusing on this aspect of the renovation work, the church, that's where we pray together, that's where we worship, that's where we baptize our children, where they receive their sacraments, where marriages happen, where we commend our deceased beloved to the hands of our merciful God. the church is the next most important area of focus for this renovation, and it's time. Pews aren't getting any better. They don't heal themselves. The carpet is not getting any cleaner or mending itself. The lighting is, we're trying to make that and the sound limp along as best as we can, but it's time to give Holy Apostles the facelift that she needs after all of these years of great activity, great enthusiasm, and great care. In 2023 is the 50th anniversary of Holy Apostles as a parish. And I think that's a great milestone to try to really focus on making this parish ready for the next 50 years, for our children and their children, and all of those who will come to encounter the Lord through our efforts today, that we can help present them a beautiful setting for that encounter with that beautiful encounter with our Lord. So please consider to be generous, help support Father Tom as this project goes forward, and pray for it. Pray for its success. Nothing is impossible with God. If He wants all of these projects to be completed altogether, then He'll have to make it happen financially. And if that's what He wants, perhaps with your cooperation, He could make it happen. But at the very least, I think it's more than due time to focus on this particular area of renovating the church and the sanctuary. So that's really where we are. That's the update I wanted to give you. You can check out pictures of the design modifications on the website. I'm happy to try to answer questions as we go along. I'll be giving Father Tom the updates in our building committee, so hopefully they'll be ready for a town hall meeting before the end of the summer with more accurate updates as the time comes. But again, thanks for those who have made these projects possible. Thanks to those who will continue to make these projects possible. And I look forward to seeing in maybe just a few short years some beautiful work taking place in the sanctuary here at Holy Apostles. All right. Thank you so much for joining me. God bless you.